Well, hello again out there in YouTube and Radio Land. This is Ham Radio Man Oz, and this is episode number 24. It's so wonderful to have your company again, joining me on another wonderful journey of fun and interesting stuff. And it's going to get a lot better, let me tell you. I've just received word today of something I'm waiting for in the post. It should be here tomorrow. So something exciting coming up, as long as everything's traveled well and works, and we'll get to that one tomorrow. If everything's good, I'll be doing the next episode tomorrow, filming for that. In the meantime, we also have some up and coming stuff, some news. You might remember those Funway into Electronics kits by Dick Smith many years ago. I used to have the books, Funway 1 and 2. I never got 3, but I always had 1 and 2. But somewhere along the line over the years, I have lost them. So I have just managed to obtain, thanks to a few connections, some copies of 1, 2 and 3, and of course they're a little bit later in the printing. I'm also obtaining the original printing of number 1 and 2 as soon as I can, and the reprint of number 1 by Sam Voron as soon as I can. And Sam Voron is a gentleman who's been in amateur radio for many years. Everyone in Australia pretty much knows his name. He used to write columns for CB Radio Action, Amateur Radio Action, all that. He used to write interesting stuff about around the bands, was one of his columns, and it was all about what you'd pick up from tuning around the shortwave bands and all the great stuff. I actually met Sam in person back in the late 80s, and he was quite a nice gentleman to know, and I went to his home and had a wonderful look at his radio gear back then, and it was very impressive. I'd imagine if he's still active today in amateur radio, not that I've heard about what he's doing. I must try and see what's going on there later on. If anyone knows what Sam's been up to, leave a comment below. And also, so we have some interesting stuff. Now, what I plan to do with those Funway projects is to recreate every project I can, from number 1 right through the whole series, because I've been looking on YouTube and I've been looking around, and there's a few videos here and there of my last Dick Smith project or my last Funway or whatever. There isn't actually any documented episodes that I've been able to find of actual producing every single project right through. So that's what I'm going to do, is a whole series of videos on each project, and starting with the basics. And there's 2 reasons why I decided to do that. One, because I have a new baby girl on the way in a couple of months, and I will be a father, and I'm hoping that I might be able to teach her into electronics and get her into it. And they were always great books to start with, especially the first one. Very easy, no soldering required, very simple stuff. And we'll move on later on into making PCBs and etching and so forth. Now, in today's episode, I wanted to raise a couple of things, because many of you might recall this little tester that I introduced in earlier episodes. Well, I got a problem with it. Now, what has happened is it came up with charge the battery across the screen. Okay, fine. So I plugged it in, the USB port at the bottom, and the red light came on the bottom, and it seemed like it was charging. But the screen was flashing on and off constantly. And after a full night of putting it on charge, and the screen just flashing and flashing, it still wasn't working. So, unfortunately, I don't have the original purchase information of where I purchased from or who I purchased from to contact him to find out what the problem is. And there are still plenty of these on the market, and this is still quite a good unit. I don't want to have to spend another $45, of course, to get one. Now, I can get cheaper ones than this for $12, $13, and so on and so on. But I want to try and see what's going on with this one. So what I did was, I opened it up, discovered the lithium battery, put it across the multimeter as it was on charge. I found that the voltage was going from 2.7 to 2.5. Took it off charge, and there was no change. The battery's got about 2.5 volts in it, not enough to power the unit. So either the battery's not charging or there's a fault with the unit. So looking at other ones on eBay, a lot of them use a 9-volt battery clip. So what I'm going to do is open this up, we'll have a look inside, and I'm going to put a 9-volt battery clip on it and try and power it up with a 9-volt battery. Now if that works, that's the way I'll leave it until I can find out what's wrong with that lithium ion battery, see if I can charge it up another way. As long as I can get this unit to work again, then that'll be fine. So that's what we're going to do this episode. So let's go have a look. Okay, so here we are with our little tester, and I've taken the screws out and we've got a multimeter here so that we can test it. So what we're going to do is take the cover off, very carefully pry the back covers off, because the battery is actually stuck with a bit of tape, nothing more but a bit of tape, to the back cover. So just be careful when you open these up to actually not pull on the cover. Just gently try and pull that battery off, and there's your back cover. I'll put that aside. So, alright, so here's the unit with the battery. And mind you, as I said, I have had this on charge for quite some time. So I'm going to put the multimeter on 20 volts, and I'll show you what I mean. So hopefully you can see that multimeter. Yes, we can. Right, okay. So, testing the battery, and I'll just put this little prong to the side so that it goes flat on the board there. Okay, so onto the positive, and onto the negative. I'm just trying to move my hands out of the way so I can get this correct. Now we're not showing any voltage, why not? Because I think that the actual terminals might be at fault here. I think the wiring on those terminals. So just move that battery a little bit and we'll try that again. So let's see, positive, negative. I think it might just be a couple of dry joints. Definitely not getting any reading at the moment. Let's have a look. No, not getting any reading at all. The multimeter's working, yes. Let's try and get onto that wire of that battery. Because I know I had it working before. Very hard to see here. I'm not getting any voltage reading at all. I've just checked my multimeter with a 9-volt battery just to make sure everything is working correctly. And we can see the multimeter is working fine. There we are, 9.67 out of the 9-volt battery. So just check that again. And I'm not showing any voltage at all now. Alright, well what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take that battery off, unsolder it, and put a 9-volt battery clip on, and first of all see if that will still power up my tester to make sure that's correct. So I'll be back in a moment. Okay, well I've soldered the 9-volt battery terminal onto it and did try to power it up, and the screen sort of came on for a second and then it went off, and so there's no power, or it's not enough power to drive the screen because it just will not flick on. So what to do? There's a bit of a dilemma. I've checked my solder connections and resoldered them again. I tried plugging in the USB charger to see what would happen with no battery attached, of course, and the LED goes green instead of red, so that's good. So there's saying that like there's no battery under load, but the 9 volts will not power it. So has something gone wrong with the circuit? Maybe. There's a lot of fine circuitry on it, and not an expert on this, and I don't even have a circuit diagram for it anyway. I would hate to have to throw this out. Let's come back to the lithium ion battery that I pulled out of it. Now that it's out, let's put that on the multimeter and see what we can come up with there. So I'll just attach the negative there, attach it to the positive here, and do we have any movement? We have very slight movement on that. Okay, very, very slight. It's like 0.2 of a volt coming out of that battery. Okay, so what do we do now? Well, yeah, I'm going to try and see if there's another way I can charge this battery, or maybe I'll resolder the battery back on. I'll clean these little ends up a bit and resolder it back on and see if it's still charging. So I'll come back. Alright, so we're back, and it's much more later in the day than I started this video. So what's happened here so far, I've taken the whole thing out of the case and to examine both sides of the board. Earlier I did try to solder in the 9-volt battery clip and tried to put a 9-volt battery on there, but the screen just flickered and went off and nothing was happening. I disconnected the battery, tried to see if the power was still going onto the board, which it was. So I put the original battery back on there, and I was right about a couple of things. There was a bad solder joint. The battery did charge finally, and it's holding 4.15 volts. So it's using 4.15 volts across the whole circuit. Now I've checked the voltage across the battery terminals, I've checked the voltage on the diode resistors here, and most of the board I've gone over with a very fine-tooth comb, like with a big magnifying glass, looking at it so carefully for any sign of either a blown resistor or burnt-out diode or anything. I can't find a single thing that's burned out on it, or any fault, or any possible variation in anything. And I don't have a circuit diagram for the board. But unfortunately, yes, the battery did charge and fully charged up, but the screen will not switch on. Now, this may have gone faulty on me when it was trying to charge up last night when I was trying to charge it, because as I said, the screen was flickering on and off constantly and it didn't seem to want to be charging. So it may have developed a fault in the screen, and it may be a fault there, but there's nothing else I can see that's actually wrong on the circuit. So unfortunately, what I have now is a spare unit, and I'll have to buy another unit. They do vary in prices for these transistor testers. This is the multifunction tester, the TC1. I actually liked this particular unit. It was a little more pricey than the cheaper ones, but it worked quite well and it had a colour screen. So I'm rather disappointed that the screen won't work anymore. So I can't find any faulty components on the board at all. I can't understand why one minute was working and the next minute it wasn't. And I guess it's just one of those things, when you buy them out of China, it happens. So unfortunately I have a dead circuit here, or a dead screen. And as I say, it's very possible it's the screen itself, but I just can't seem to find any voltages going there or anything like that. So not to worry, it worked for a while, it worked quite well for a while, and I'll just have to get another one. The interesting thing to note on it is that it does have an infrared little receiver here, because on the front of the case it shows an infrared connection, or an infrared circle there next to the push button, and it looks like an infrared detector on it, but I've never used it with infrared, so unusual. But it did charge up the battery. It went from red to green, showing it was fully charged, and the maximum charge is 4.15 volts. So rather interesting. There's a lot of cheaper ones on the market. I may just have to get a cheaper one for now, because I'm getting a bit pushed on funds at the moment, but they're a great little tester, and sadly it's just dead. So if anyone else has got one of these at home and has had problem with it, or the screen's done the same thing to them, please let me know. I think one of the ideal important things to do with these would be to charge them up after every use, maybe, which I didn't do. I used it until it went flat, and maybe that's not a good thing. Maybe you need to actually charge them up constantly, keep them charged. But as I say, I don't know enough about this, so I'll keep this for a spare, or if anyone out there would like to have a look at it, maybe you know a bit more about it, I'll happily send it to you if you think you can have a look at it and resolve the issue. That would be great, and then you can do a little video on what was wrong. But otherwise, other than that, I think I'll just keep it for spares. At least I've got a spare battery there, and a nice little few bits and pieces that I can use later on. But sadly, until at this stage, it's a no-go. Oh well, as I say, you buy these things out of China, and that's what happens. So not everything coming out of China will last. It lasted a while, it worked for a while, it served a purpose, but it'll just have to be replaced. That's pretty much that one. Oh, and the other thing I want to touch on with this video too is I have these BCD binary counter thumb switches I've had for quite some time. I've had these thumb wheel binary counter switches. I was looking at making a decade box, a resistance decade box. Now I did see on YouTube several people have used thumb switches like this to make a decade box for resistors, and I thought, well, that's a good idea. I originally had these to use in a flight simulator, so you had your pilot and co-pilot side, because on the control yokes you will see on the 737s they have these in the control yokes. I think they're for putting in courses, instantly putting in the course correction to the autopilot. But I've had them sitting around for quite some time, and I thought, well, maybe I'll use that and make a decade box. Now, the only problem is there's only 5 terminals on these actual thumb switches. These are an older thumb switch. I'll bring that up to the camera so you can see. So there's only 5. There's a common, and then it's 1, 2, 3, and 8, I think it goes. I have found directions for the BCD circuit on the internet, but I'm not sure I'm going to be able to use these for a decade box. Now there is a kit for $30 from Spark for Fun of a decade box using trim pots, of course, but I might even get that. But short of that, I'm going to see if I can't use this thumb switch to make a decade box, and if I have any success, then I'll make a video out of that. But if anyone's got any ideas with these ones to make them into a decade box, even for minor resistance levels, as many as I can get, let me know. Otherwise, this will be something I'll use at a later stage for some other project. Not sure yet what, but something that might come in handy. Well, there you go, guys. Did we achieve anything? Did we really get anywhere? I'm not really sure, but it's interesting to note that if you have one of these little testers, this is something you need to look out for. Maybe you need to charge it earlier. Maybe you need to replace it with just a 9-volt battery clip, but we'll see what happens from there. Anyway, thanks very much for joining me again. Please give me a big thumbs up, like the videos, rate the videos, comment, leave a comment below, please, and let me know what you think. And we'll catch you in the next episode. This is Ham Radio Man Oz saying thank you for watching 73s.